What's going on, everyone? This is Preet, and today I just kind of wanted to make a video about the current state of fire mages and what it's going to look like going into 7.3.5 with the new raid coming out. So kind of want to just talk first about how mages are doing right now, fire specifically. Not going to cover frost or arcane in this video, but basically I just want to talk about how fire is becoming, you know, the more competitive spec in terms of single target DPS. There's more mages going fire than there are mages staying frost, and I think that has a lot to do with the end game as it stands right now, what it's looking like, and the perspective that people are going into Taurus for. So, as most of you probably know by now, the set bonuses have been released for the Runebound Arcanist set, or whatever the fuck it's called. But basically, our 2 and 4 sets looking really strong for fire. This is assuming it's not going to be nerfed by Blizzard, which is more than likely going to happen, hopefully by not too much, but we'll see. So as it stands right now, our 2-piece basically increases your combustion by a flat 2 seconds, which is always a bonus. Having an extra 2 seconds on combustion gets out another 2 globals if you're haste capped, so an extra 2 globals during combustion. By itself, it's not a huge thing, but it's still pretty good. But our 4 set is what's really gonna make the class, what's gonna really make the spec shine, I think, and what's gonna bring a lot of throughput to our cooldowns. It's kind of gonna shift the playstyle to right now, like, you know how we have all of our damage during combustion, and then we kind of have like really shitty sustained damage when combustion's on cooldown. But I think the goal for this next tier is going to be to basically have combustion up as much as possible. And for you guys that have been playing fire mages since the beginning, or since the beginning of the expansion, you'll probably, you know, have some idea as to how we're going to do that. But for most people watching this video, or for the people that are watching this video to kind of get some more information, I think I'm gonna do my best to cover it as best as possible. So our 4 set basically increases the critical strike damage of our combustion by 50% for 14 seconds. So throughout the duration of our combustion, or most of it at least, we're gonna have 50% crit damage on all of our spells. So that's pretty fucking huge, in my opinion. What this basically means is that we're gonna have to line everything up during combustion and get as much damage out as possible. I don't know what that means for our sustained DPS at the moment. Hopefully with the itemization in Taurus, we'll see a little bit more items in terms of, like, speaking statistic, like strictly about stats. I think we're gonna see, you know how right now if you're not using our T19 2 set bonus, that you're just fishing for pyro procs when you're casting fireball. Like, I don't know if most of you experience this to the extent that I do, but I'll be sitting there casting 4 or 5 fireballs before I see a crit sometimes, and that's just basically how we're playing the class right now. The kind of end goal right now is to stack as much mastery as possible. So, you know, I have my 2 sets here, and if I swap to my set, I'll be up there in like the 14-15k range. So this is kind of what's being deemed viable right now for fire, getting as much mastery as possible, getting your haste and verse up there. Crit, not so much. The times you do crit, you want your ignites to be building instead of your actual just crits to be carrying your sustained damage. So hopefully that's going to kind of shift into something where that our crit damage during combustion is going to compensate for the fact that we don't really have much sustain during our down phase. So next, I kind of just want to talk about how we're going to achieve, or what it seems like we're going to have to do in order for this 4 set to be really beneficial. The obvious is Kindling's going to definitely come into play. I think that's going to really outshine Meteor and Cinderstorm. Can't speak for all the fights, but I can say that Kindling is going to be probably our best talent in the last tier. That coupled with the Pyrotex Ignition Cloth. Now, in my opinion, I think that having your combustion on a minute or 45 second cooldown is going to be huge. I think that the more times you can reduce your combustion's duration, I think it's going to lead to a huge damage increase with that 4 set bonus. Now, obviously, if you run Kindling, you're going to have combustion up a lot shorter than you would have without being kindling. But I think with the legendary gloves, and with kindling and with our 4-set, I think it's just going to be a huge it's just going to be a huge damage increase to have your combustion up all the time. It's going to be so big that running anything else is not going to be really that viable. So that's where I'm at with how it's looking for next tier. If I had to say which 2 legendaries are going to be BIS, I think it's going to be the gloves and the bracers. I think the belt is really going to be situational. I don't know how, you know, there's probably most probably there's gonna be fights where you're not gonna want combustion up as soon as possible. You know, the way the phasing works for certain bosses and the way you need to like save it for ads or whatnot. I think that there are gonna be situational uses for other legendaries, but I think for our go-to single target tank and spec patchwork fights, gloves and bracers are definitely gonna be our go-to. That's strictly speaking about the 4-set bonus. I don't know what it's going to look like in terms of stats and our throughput when we don't have combustion on cooldown. I don't know what it's going to be like in terms of how inflated our actual stats are going to be, what the scaling is going to be like. But if I had to say something about next tier, I think that's going to be it. So putting that aside for a second, going back to where fire mages are at right now, I kind of touched on it before, but the whole mastery thing, you know, this is kind of where we're at right now, where I think a lot of mages that are, you know, you look at top parse mages and you look at damage done to bosses and stuff, like Ignite's huge right now, and I think the scaling of it is really carrying our DPS. You know, we went from being an Emerald Nightmare where crit was the if all end all, people were wearing like 905 gear, you know, like whatever it was, 865 rings just to have the crit stat on them. And to a certain extent we have started to see that with mastery. Like right now this is my best neck. Obviously I don't have anything better than that, but I'm saying the mastery aspect of fire right now is so big that people are doing everything they can to get their mastery up like as high as possible without sacrificing too much of the other stats, right? So if we look at Pawn, which is the add-on I use to generate my, or to have my weights in game, if we go to fire, we'll see that right now crit is like not so low that it's useless, but mastery and verse are obviously still higher. And the stats I'm sitting at right now, you know, crit's at 28%, 27-ish%. So crit not being that good and it still being that low in terms of how we've seen the progression of fire mages go over the course of the expansion, I think that it's pretty interesting to see that mastery and our other stats are still heavily inflated. So, you know, if when it's this low, you're kind of just looking at like, okay, well, and how much of this stat do I need for it to not be as important anymore? And with my current gear, like this is the weights that it's being used for. I'm at 939 eye level, and these are the weights that I'm using for them. So, you know, crit, it's like, it's negligible, you know, you don't need that much crit, and a lot of the top parsing fire mages don't seem to be stacking crit or having 43% crit. It's just like, it's not useful anymore. So hopefully that's going to shift next year. That'll be really nice. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you think fire mages are doing right now, if you think they're going to be viable next year, if you think anything of what I said about the legendaries and the tier set bonuses is going to be useful. I'd be interested in hearing what you guys have to say. So yeah, thanks guys, peace.